Humanity wandered silently for centuries. We came late among the stars, entering the galactic table through diplomacy, not conquest. While others expanded through conflict and oppression, we offered collaboration, trade, and science. In council rooms beyond the Oran Spur, we were seen as naive young blood. The elder races, short-lived and passionate, labeled us emotionally unstable and unproven. They saw us as more focused on internal squabbles than true power plays, and that image remained. The galaxy paid a heavy price for what it overlooked. The fact that humanity had already faced its greatest threat, itself. Our history was soaked in the blood of ideology and war. Millennia of violent conflict, arms races, extinction-level mistakes. We had stared into the abyss of our own nature and chose, finally, to live. So when we arrived at the stars, it wasn't out of hunger or pride. We arrived with restraint. Peace wasn't our nature, it was our decision, but the Zvari Dominion couldn't comprehend that. They saw restraint as weakness. On a world of predators evolved to worship aggression, domination, and empire, the Zvari crushed anything that stood. In their way. So, when they looked at humans, they didn't see a threat. They saw opportunity. The first contact wasn't a declaration. It wasn't diplomacy. It was violence. A human colony on the outskirts of Ura Prime vanished from every grid, no distress signal. No survivors. A burnt rock spinning quietly around. A red dwarf. 12 million scientists and children gone. The Galactic Council met. They proposed sanctions, issued condemnations, and then returned to business. To them, it was just politics. To us, it was personal. The galaxy assumed we'd weep quietly, grieve, maybe threaten, maybe retaliate mildly. But they thought we lacked teeth. Instead, Earth went dark, no broadcasts, no delegates. Our fleets disappeared, trade routes went silent. Our embassies closed. Some thought we retreated in fear. Others believed we had folded. But the truth was colder. We were calculating. In bunkers deep under lunar soil, in silent stations under Martian rock. In the black between stars, something ancient stirred. There was no army, no dramatic broadcast. Just a quiet resolve, forged over 1,000,000 years of pain, betrayal, and survival. The Zvari celebrated Arya's destruction. But they didn't realize that their tactical victory was the start of their doom. Their strategists mocked our silence. Their tyrants assumed we'd submit. They never calculated the cost of waking a species that had already faced its own apocalypse and survived it. Weeks passed. Our outer settlements were evacuated, trade halted. It looked like retreat, but it wasn't. We were preparing the board. To send a message that wouldn't need to be repeated, some species grew nervous. The observant ones noticed the shift. The silence wasn't empty. It was focused. Humanity had always been loud, expressive, emotional. But now. Like the ocean before a storm. The Zvari mistook it for paralysis. They didn't realize they were standing in the eye of the storm. They'd never encountered a species that didn't start wars but finished them. Their empire was built on terror. Their military doctrine was refined conquest. Their youngest warlords believed Earth would sue for peace, that we'd give up colonies to survive. They studied our physiology and mocked our fragility. They analyzed our emotions and called them weaknesses. They misunderstood empathy as cowardice. They intercepted our messages full of grief, pain, confusion, no vengeance, no threats. Just silence. To them, that meant victory. They thought we were broken, but one soldier, burned and barely conscious, whispered something before dying in their custody. "You've already lost." They laughed it off, but the phrase spread, whispered between their troops, chilling the ones who paid attention. And still, Earth said nothing. Their propaganda mocked our slowness. Simulations showed our surrender. Their generals fought over who would claim Earth's soul, but the veterans. The old conquerors. They weren't so confident. They remembered something different. Something buried in our eyes, a silent fire that never flickered. A restraint that terrified them more than rage ever could, because self-control is the ultimate. Warning, what the Zvari didn't realize was that we had already moved. We hadn't gone quiet. We had gone to war. No declaration. No anthem, no drums. Just whispers, black sites activated, old files reopened. Initiatives unsealed, classified directives, forgotten by most of our own governments, reawakened. There was no budget. No press conference. Just one order: eliminate the existential threat, and the assets moved. They wore no insignia. They flew no flag. They answered to no government. Only to the protocol. Their job wasn't defense. It was erasure. Phase 1 wasn't kinetic, it was psychological. Encrypted packets began appearing across very networks. Loops of Earth's darkest moments: genocide, civil war, extinction. Laced with patterns designed to disorient and disturb, war nodes glitched. Drones malfunctioned. Entire fleets vanished, not destroyed, erased. No debris. No signal, just absence. And through it all, Earth remained silent, because we didn't need to roar. The storm had already begun. And this time it would not pass. Early triumphs. This was not retaliation. War strategists acted without announcements they didn't speak of. Objectives. They drew conclusions. Entire systems were marked, not for bargaining, not for advantage. But for a final solution. Biologists were summoned not to unleash plagues, but to understand. They studied the neural vulnerabilities of the Zvari. Custom frequencies were built to trigger sensory overload. The battlefield wouldn't be just physical, it would be psychological. The kind of terror that lingers long after the shooting ends. Where the rewritten mind fears its own memories. Cyber warfare divisions, buried beneath lunar crusts, were released. Interstellar code strands wormed their way across channels. These weren't viruses in the traditional sense. They were disruptors designed to destabilize the way the Zvari saw, heard, thought. Ghosts in the spatial data, phantom fleets, gravitational irregularities that felt real. Looked real, but weren't. Zvari commanders began to doubt their own systems. They saw weakness in our silence, but we knew something they didn't. To win a war, you must break the mind before you ever touch the body. And then the first human ships appeared. They didn't arrive with fanfare. No transmissions, no emblems. Just silent, matte black hulls, cooled to avoid detection. They didn't show up on standard optical ranges. By the time you saw them, you were already dead. Captured Zvari officers spoke of ships that didn't move, didn't fire, just existed like shadows. They described weapons that didn't make holes, but ripped silence in the air like liquid. Entire squadrons vanished. Scanners turned to static. Survivors muttered strange phrases, human words they couldn't understand. Words that repeated in their minds, like echoes. This isn't revenge. It never ends. The erasure was clinical. No explanation. No justification. No survivors. Entire systems fell, one after another. At first, no pattern, but every calculation had an algorithm behind it. This wasn't chaos. This was justice. Engineered. Every possibility had already been gamed out. The moment the threshold was crossed, we responded. Not with rage, but with certainty. When the colony of Rhea fell, the countdown began, and there would be no reset. The assault began without announcement. Not through hyperspace lanes or trade routes, but through non-linear folds. No warnings. No signatures. Just arrival. Precisely 3 o'clock Galactic Standard Time, 13 o'clock. Zvari military time. Entire moons lost, fortresses annihilated. Core reactors ruptured in seconds. No time to activate defenses. They exploded before systems even registered intrusion. Zvari command scrambled, but their networks were already compromised. False navigation. Data, friendly fire, fleet turned against fleet. And then silence. Human ships didn't fight. Like others. There was no front. No formation. They appeared behind enemy lines, above planets, inside manufacturing facilities. Their fire didn't pause. It was surgical. Devastating. Command chains decapitated. Civilian zones ignored. No collateral. Satellites captured the impossible. Coordinated strikes with a 99% casualty ratio. Zvari elite units tried to counter boarding tactics. Nothing reached the hull. Dreadnoughts shut down as internal systems turned on themselves. Biological signals betrayed the crews. No kill orders needed. Just system shut down. Capitulation was denied. No terms were offered. There was no mercy, because humans didn't come from above. They rose from within. Old infiltration cells, long dormant machines, silent, fragmentation of infrastructure. The planet melted from within. There were no explosions. Just failure and fear. Zvari civilians didn't ask, "What's happening?" They asked, "How long will they stay?" Command planets lost contact. Not because of weapons, but because their fleets were already gone. Blackout zones appeared on every star map. System after system fell. No reinforcements arrived. Every contingency anticipated. Every response countered. Zvari couldn't keep up. Human systems adapted faster than their own minds could process. This wasn't a war. It was a surgical deletion, one by one. The Zvari warrior castes were removed. Gene lock targeting. DNA sequences traced. No bombs. No invasions. Just silence. Breathing chambers flash. Frozen. Command. Labs erased. Future generations vaporized before conception. The Zvari tried diplomacy. Sent messages. Broadcast. Council. Representatives begged for mediation. Earth said nothing. Every message was intercepted. Log. Ignored. The silence had become absolute. The High Warlord initiated the Ecliptor Protocol, a total planetary defense. Cascade, massive energy surges, gravitational barriers, but the humans arrived. Seconds. Before activation. The system never deployed, because humans had already calculated the timing before the first Zvari shot was fired. They were surrounded. The last image ever recorded of Zvari. Prime was a sphere of light, not fire. Not ash. Just void. The star remained. Everything else gone. Later, its center crumbled. Quantum implants, ruptured fault lines. No radiation. No fallout. Just erasure. The galaxy watched in silence. Maps were redrawn, treaties rewritten, and then finally someone said,